Stanley is in Kentucky, and you are on the air. Hello, Stanley.
Hey, Paul, how are you doing today?
We are great. Thank you.
All right. Listen, I got a couple things on my mind, and then I'm going to get off here and let you talk to your viewers.
Sure.
The first one I want to talk about was on Monday. I was watching your show, and I didn't have a chance to call in. I was getting ready for work. But you put Darryl in his place. Now, I haven't seen the tweet. I don't know what he said. But from your reaction, I am sure that it was not pleasant. Now, for a man to take pleasure in someone else's pain or someone else getting hurt, I don't think that's very classy. I think Darryl needs to look himself in the mirror and ask, who am I? I think you hit the nail on the head when you put him, like I said, in his place.
Well, let me address that quickly, and then I'll let you finish, Stanley. And we don't have the ability to be censors of what everyone that calls in this program tweets on. But I started seeing mentions of Darryl's tweet about Tua, and in the end, Darryl took a picture of Tua on the ground Saturday and had several tweets, and I'm not going to get into specifics, but just incredibly tasteless, incredibly cruel, inappropriate, and disgusting. And when he came on, I gave him a chance to address it, and he just started blabbering. And then I said what I did. And listen, I mean, I think it's foolish for a program to say, this guy's banned, but because I don't like doing that. But when I talked to him the other day, I basically said what I did, and I said, I really don't care if you ever call back again. Frankly, I don't ever want him to call back again because, and I gave him an opportunity to at least address it. Maybe I mean, I'm not even sure an apology would have fazed me, but I felt. And I don't want to get in the habit of this because I think we'll be doing this all day because there's always somebody saying something. But this just, I've never seen anything quite like this. And
there's got to be a limit as to what you say or what you do on social media for other people. I mean, you've got to have some type of compassion about you. I mean, every time that I have heard you speak on a matter or a subject, you've been fair and you've been honest about it. Now, you give him the chance to rectify the situation, so to speak. And he didn't do it. He just went off on some tirade.
Yeah, which is all he knows how to do.
Right.
And by the way, I mean, he's not the only one. I mean, we got a couple other callers out there that have put trash out there. But it just was, and it has nothing to do with, it could have been about any player, but it just seemed like, for me, I mean, whether I like it or not, and I don't mean to be shirking responsibility, I am held accountable for what goes on during and on this program, and I don't want to be associated with this guy.
Well, all I got to say, Paul, is you handled it like a true professional, and total respect for you.
Thank you very, very much.
Yes. The other thing I wanted to say was a few years ago when Ed Ogeron was at Southern Cal, they let their head coach go. I can't remember if it was Lane Kiffin.
No, it was Lane Kiffin was fired, and Ed took over and did a really good job. Right.
And the players loved him.
Oh, they did.
I thought he got a raw deal. I thought Ed Ogeron was just swept under the rug.
Well, he was replaced, Stanley, instead of hiring Ogeron, who had beaten Stanford in a big primetime game. They hired Steve Sarkisian, who used to be there under Pete Carroll. And listen, all Steve Sarkisian did was get fired for public drunkenness.
Yeah. Pretty ironic.
By the way, I'm not talking about public drunkenness at a restaurant. I'm talking about public drunkenness at a university event when he got up drunk and made a fool out of himself.
I remember it happening, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. But what I was going to say is I had the utmost respect for Ed. I mean, I thought he got a raw deal. I thought he's a good coach. But have you seen the video of Ed Ogeron when he dropped the F-bomb on Alabama after the game 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah. Now that I thought was classless. No class whatsoever. Now I understand he was with his team in the locker room and he was trying to get some motivation going for his team. I understand that. But these head coaches are held to a very high standard. And to say something like that about an opponent that you just beat, who gave you all you could handle and more, and then he wants to come off with something like that, I think that showed no class whatsoever on his part. Now, I understand Nick Saban cusses and he carries on, but I've never heard him put down another team the way Ogeron did. Your thoughts on that?
Well, Stanley, I'm conflicted for this reason. It was supposed to be between Coach O and his players. Now, you could argue, well, so what? He still said it. I really was not. Thank you for the call. I was not bothered by it because I think it was in the moment. He was trying to send a message that we're not going to be run over anymore. We're not going to be somebody's underling. And in a way, I think he was doing it to resonate and relate to not only the people in that room, but the future recruits who want to play for someone who believes in them. Now, listen. Is it the kind of language I would use? No, I'm not. I'm not a football coach. I don't talk like that. Tim is up next in Mississippi. Hey, Tim, go right ahead.
Hey, Paul, how you doing, little buddy? Couple
We're doing
things.
great.
I just want to tell the caller that called in and questioned you a while ago. I'll tell your fans about Paul Finebaum. At least you're not a hypocrite. You come on here every day and you tell what is what. You know, we do got hypocrites like Reese and Kurt and all them. Paul, I know I said something to you about Clemson's schedule, but I want to give an example. For the past 2 years, 2 years ago, we've heard UCF get blasted by Reese. Play somebody, and you'll get in. But if you look on that list, this year, Clemson and UCF schedule is the same. But then we got Joey sitting here saying they should be number one. So I don't understand it, Paul.
Well, listen, I've been pretty hard on Clemson. I do believe Clemson is a very good football team, but unfortunately, we're not going to find out until the 14th game of the season. And you know, some of it is our fault. What I mean by that is they're too big. I mean, they don't have to play two Power 5 games. I mean, they could do what Alabama's doing and play Duke and Western Carolina and New Mexico, and I can't remember all the stupid teams on Alabama's schedule, but they scheduled Texas A&M home and away, and it just so happened that Texas A&M is going to end up losing probably 5 games. So I'm conflicted a little bit because their one big non-conference game, in addition to their rival South Carolina, was supposed to be a really good school, and I can't help it that South Carolina is a disaster. Now, the one thing, I mean, here I am defending Clemson, but Clemson can't do anything about its conference schedule. The ACC is laughable this year. It's never been worse, and Clemson can only play that schedule that it has.
Well, Paul, does Arkansas want to win? I mean, why are they going backwards on their?
Well, let me say this. First of all, if Houston Nutt was a serious candidate for that job, I don't think he'd be going on a radio show talking about it. I think Houston Nutt is out there just trying to put his name in the hopper and get people to call in and say, we need Houston to come back home. I mean, I think it's ridiculous to bring Houston Nutt into Arkansas. I mean, if you're gonna dig up a old bone and bring him back, bring back Bobby Petrino.
Yeah, or Hugh Freeze. Bring Hugh Freeze back.
Oh well, no, Hugh Freeze is still coaching. I mean, I think Hugh Freeze would be a good choice. And can you imagine Houston Nutt ended up getting Hugh Freeze fired at Ole Miss? Maybe that's why he's doing what he's doing. But listen, I don't blame Houston Nutt. He went on the show and got a bunch of attention. But this isn't the old days when you can galvanize support like that. You got an athletic director who fired a coach who people like, but he couldn't win. You're not firing Chad Morris to bring back Houston Nutt.
Hire me instead.
Yeah, I mean, if you would give Chad Morris another year if you were that desperate. And I said it. I mean, Houston Nutt, it reeks of desperation.
Well, you think SEC commissioner will let Hugh Freeze come back?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I mean, listen, Hugh Freeze sat out 2 years, but the commissioner, the commissioner says it's not up to him, although most people believe he didn't want the guy in the league. And the reason why Greg Sankey didn't want Hugh Freeze in the league is that he didn't think it was fair to have Hugh Freeze coaching while the team he left behind and the probation that he left behind was still intact. I understood that. I've had several conversations with Greg about that. We'll take a break. More of your phone calls right after this. Let's continue. Andrew is in South Carolina as we continue right here on a Wednesday afternoon. Hello, Andrew.
Hey, how's it going, Paul? Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Thank you.
And I had to vent. I vent to you because I'd like your expertise on the situation. I know they've touched on it, but I've got to vent my frustration. South Carolina is just a disaster this year. Especially, Muschamp went out earlier in the year with his press conferences. Oh, this is the best team I've had. This is going to be a good year. Yeah, we got a tough schedule, but we'll be okay. We're not even going to make a bowl game. And then I get more frustrated because whoever wrote that contract with a $22 million buyout is ridiculous.
Well, listen, Andrew, don't scratch your head. This is Ray Tanner's doing, okay?
Yeah, and that was my next point. I'm glad you brought him up because that was my next thing. Now you had this press conference not too long ago or whatever, or his site there about, he is our coach. This is our year. Like, he doesn't want to pull the trigger on it. And I just don't understand how it's acceptable to where they've made a bowl game at least every other year, or every year, I should say, for the last 4 years. And we're not even going to make a bowl game. I mean, they lost games that they shouldn't have lost to. I mean, North Carolina, you're talking about Tennessee.
Andrew, do you understand? Here's the critical part of any coaching decision. And this is Will's, fourth year or fifth year? I can't remember.
This is his fourth year.
Okay.
There.
So when you make a decision to keep a coach who he's not going to begin next season on the hot seat, he's going to end this season on the hot seat. So you have people recruiting against him. You have Clemson once again in the playoffs for the fifth year out of six. They may win, they may not win. It doesn't matter. You've got a coach who promised a bill of goods and didn't deliver. And what is he going to say and what is he going to do in the offseason to turn and change the narrative around? He has recruited well at times, but he can't say the same thing he said last year. If he starts making a bunch of wholesale changes, what good does that do?
Right. I just had to voice my frustration, see where you are on it, because I mean, like I said, he's established himself.
Well, listen, I'm a talk show host. I don't get to decide. I know what I would do if I were the athletic director. It really wouldn't be a hard decision for me.
Right, correct. And I'm kind of to that point too. Because the first couple of years I figured, it's a new coach. He's got to get his own players in.
Andrew, hate to run. We're up against a break. A disastrous football Saturday in the state of Alabama. Certainly Auburn losing, but it was all about Tua. What happened a few miles away in Starkville, Mississippi, still has most of the sports world talking.
Now, Dr. Lyle Kane, who did not perform the surgery, but he is the team orthopedic surgeon for the Alabama Crimson Tide, he says that the prognosis is excellent for Tua and that they expect him to make a full recovery. He will be returning to Tuscaloosa in the next several days to begin rehab, but our ESPN reporter Laura Rutledge, she learned that Tua will be on a partial weight-bearing recovery plan for the next 6 weeks. He'll be rehabbing daily in Tuscaloosa. In 3 months, he'll be able to begin athletic activity again, and by the spring, he should be good to go to begin throwing no matter what he decides to do, whether he decides to stay in school or enter the NFL draft.
I'm going to take this lemon, and it says the LSU defense will cost them the national title. Is that low-hanging fruit?
No, I think that's pretty accurate. It could very well happen.
But again, if the hot takes come out trying to blame Saban or Tua, just stop. You're just furthering your agenda. And the truth of the matter is this: it's very simple. It just sucks that this happened.
I'm sick of your garbage, and I think the audience is too. But thank you for your call, though.
I'm just a caller on your program. When you're looking at LSU, can they beat Ohio State? Forget that. They got to get past Georgia.
Yeah, I don't understand. Why do all Georgia fans worry about other teams other than themselves?
They have won that game without Tua. Surely they could have. I think it's also fair to point out, as my former esteemed colleague Cecil Hurt did, that Alabama scored 3 points with Mac Jones as a quarterback. And can you imagine the outrage if they had sat Tua and they sleptwalked their way through an 11 o'clock kick and they gotten beat? But that's beside the point. They could have won that game without Tua, but they thought he was healthy enough to play. Tua and his family wanted to play, and he played.
I heard that you're going to be returning to Athens, Georgia this
Yes.
Saturday.
Cannot wait.
And I want you to be wearing those spikes.
Here, and we'll take your phone calls at 855-242-7285. Tony is up next. Hey, Tony.
Hey, Paul. So I hear you don't think Houston's the answer in Arkansas.
That would be correct, yes.
Well, I got to agree with you. The last few years he was there, his record really slid against teams that mattered. He won the easy games, but he didn't win the big games. And after being out of coaching so long, I don't know that he could really make a difference for us now. But where should we be looking?
Well, I mean, listen, I think there is a prototype for a coach, and someone with experience. I think that's important. Who you don't have to be that young, but I think you have to be a really good recruiter. I know Mike Norvell's name has come up a lot. I think Hugh Freeze, Lane Kiffin, names like that are should be seriously considered. I frankly think Hugh Freeze would be a really good fit out there.
Yeah, Hugh got himself in a mess over there in Mississippi, but other than that, I mean, he seems like a good guy.
Well, listen, I don't want to persuade anyone because I know Hugh Freeze very well, and I was in Oxford about a year ago, and we went out and had a long dinner, and he laid it all out for me, and he's laid it all out for the audience on this program, and I'm not trying to sound like a minister, but he's a human being. He made some pretty bad mistakes. He asked for forgiveness, and importantly, his wife stayed with him. And they are still together. Now, that doesn't mean anything. All that means is that he got past it, and I think he had genuine remorse. He gave up a great career, and I think it's not simple, but I think it's the simplistic way of explaining it is somebody who, found success, a lot of power, and he abused that. He didn't abuse it in a position like. And a politician, he abused it in terms of from a personal standpoint. And I think Lane Kiffin's another one who's a really good offensive coach, who's been a head coach now. Let's see, Lane's been a head coach 4 different places. He has experience.
I'd rather see Hugh Freeze come over there than Lane Kiffin. He kind of
I tell you what, I think Hugh's a better fit. I mean, Lane Kiffin would be a good coach somewhere. I think Hugh Freeze fits well into the Arkansas mentality because he's from Mississippi. He's worked in Memphis. He's at Liberty now. Yeah, I have a hard time believing Liberty University would have hired Hugh Freeze if they were concerned about the image and the reputation that he has.
Oh, I agree. That's my alma mater, Liberty University.
Well,
Good
you
stuff
know it
over
better
there.
than I do then.
Yeah. Yeah, Lane Kiffin doesn't really seem like an Arkansas kind of guy. I don't think
No,
he's been
I'll be
successful
honest with you, he doesn't.
But
Well, Tony, thank you. Listen, I'm not campaigning for anyone. I just know a good coach when I see one, and I happen to think Hugh Freeze is a tremendous coach. Now, I'm a fan of Norvell. I think Matt Campbell's name has been mentioned. I think he would be phenomenal. I don't know if you can get Matt Campbell. You've already gone for the hot, young offensive mind in Chad Morris, and that didn't work out. I'd be a little more careful this time around. Drake is in Texas. Drake, you're on the air. Good afternoon.
How are you doing, Paul?
We are doing great. Thank you.
Great. Hey, the reason I'm calling today is I was a little disgruntled last night watching the playoff pick on I'm a fan of Texas A&M, but I was a little worried by A&M not even being in the top 25. And then you look at teams like USC with a 7-4 record and 6-4 with Iowa State. And my question is strength of schedule, what A&M had this year, wouldn't you think that they'd be somewhere in that top 25?
Well, listen, I mean, if A&M had Oregon's schedule or Utah's schedule or Clemson's schedule, I realize they played Clemson, what would their record be? I mean, they would at the most have one loss. I mean, A&M and South Carolina had the two toughest schedules in the country. And A&M could right the ship. A&M will, next weekend, assuming LSU is number one, that'll be the third number one team they've faced this year. Has that ever happened before?
I agree. What's your thoughts on the game this week with A&M and Georgia? Do you think A&M could possibly play spoiler in that game?
I do. Yes, I completely agree with you on that. I think there's a shot at a win over these next 2 weeks, and because I think you're talking about an offensive wizard here. Which game is the best possibility? Maybe it's LSU. I mean, to me, Georgia is coming off of a tough win. LSU might be even a more vulnerable position because they can afford a loss. Georgia can't afford a loss, but I think it comes up to a matchup situation. And, Jimbo Fisher is due for a big win.
I agree. Let me ask you this. Looking at the schedule for next year for A&M is really favorable. Where do you see A&M in a year? I know it's looking ahead is sometimes a bad thing, especially this time of year. But I'm just curious at their schedule for next year where you see.
Yeah, I haven't. I'm not sure I've looked at it lately. Who are their non-conference games? Who's their big non-conference?
The first game is Abilene Christian, North Texas, Colorado, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Fresno State, Auburn, South Carolina, and then they're off. Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, then Alabama.
That is you can't order. You can't go to Amazon and order a better schedule than that.
I agree.
No, that's a 9 or 10 win schedule, if you ask me.
Yes, sir. I agree. Well, Paul, I sure do enjoy your show.
Thank you.
Keep doing what you're doing, and
Greg, thank you.
I'll let you go. You bet.
Great to have you on. Wiley is in Georgia. Hey, Wiley. Good afternoon.
Hey, Paul. I got a question for you, sir. Okay. Let's just take Alabama for instance. Who sets the non-conference schedule for Alabama or the SEC? Does Alabama do that, or does the SEC?
Yeah, listen.
Or the NCAA?
Let me explain the SEC schedule is automatic. Alabama has.
Well, no, I know that, but like we're coming up on this powder puff schedule.
Yeah.
This week.
Let me give you the philosophy that everyone has. most schools, there are exceptions. Like Florida this year played Florida State and Miami, South Carolina played, most have, rarely do you see two big-time opponents. Everyone tries to play that one big Power 5 opponent. It just so happened that Alabama's was Duke this year.
Right.
And they didn't schedule Duke like, hey, let's play Duke. They agreed to play in the Atlanta game, the Chick-fil-A Classic, and that is an SEC-ACC game. So they've already played Florida.
For Clemson, I think.
Yeah, that was originally the idea, and that got knocked off the board. And they had already played Florida State. They had played Louisville a couple years ago, and I think they had played Virginia Tech. So there really weren't too many other options. Now, I don't buy for a second that anyone thought Duke was going to be good this year. Nobody did. And so they kind of got stuck with that.
Yeah, I realize that, but my question is, all the talking heads on all the other networks are saying, this is one of the other cupcake weeks in the SEC. So let's say that the NCAA or the SEC came out and said, okay, you can play one of those games out of the SEC, and every other game you play has to be within the conference. Do you see that being, if that were to come, and I understand they set some schedules in 2 years in advance.
Are you talking about adding more conference games?
Yeah.
Well, let me explain that. The SEC currently plays 8. A lot of the leagues, like the Big Ten, Pac-12, Big 12, play 9. The SEC is adamantly opposed to adding a conference game. Do you know why they are against adding a conference game?
I do not.
Okay, I'm going to explain it to you. I asked an official once, why don't you guys get with the 21st century or the 22nd or whatever? And it was explained to me that if you add a conference game, what does that mean to 7 SEC schools?
Well, I guess that means one of them's going to lose.
You got it. And if everyone has another loss, that makes it more difficult for them to fill up their bowl allotment.
Yeah, but don't you think at some point in time, if, everything would be great that the bowls, I know the bowls are great and they're important because they give a lot of money to schools, as do these powder puff games, because like Alabama will probably pay, I don't know, $1 million, 1.3, something like that. So it makes their program for the whole year. But do you see a chance where the college football playoff will expand and some of these bowl games will become more of the bowl games will become part of the playoff system? Yeah,
I don't think so. Listen, Wally, thank you. I have friends who are very involved in the bowl system, and I have been a mild critic of all the bowl games, especially when elite players make the decision not to play in them. I understand how important bowl games are to communities, and I'm not here to knock them. They make a lot of money. They bring sponsorships in. But why are we playing games like Western Carolina, Sanford, Mercer, whatever the schedule is this week, Abilene Christian, when we could have legitimate conference games? And this is where the SEC becomes vulnerable every year on this weekend. The Big Ten, you got Ohio State and Penn State. Pretty good game. Finally, the SEC added usually there's one SEC game, maybe two. This year, the A&M Georgia game is marquee. It's a good game because CBS has to have something to put on in their 3:30 window, but the SEC doesn't want it. And I think it's as simple as that. Hey, we must take a break. We are going to continue with your calls. Number of guests will join us for the next 3 hours or so. We're right back after this.
When I look back at the game, I'm real proud of our team, the way they fought. We were down 21 points in the fourth quarter. Our guys fought, got us back in the game, had some opportunities there, that towards the end to give us a chance to tie the game or whatever. And then really what stood out to me too is our fans. Our fans were unbelievable. They rolled their sleeves up and they were fighting for us, and it was a great it was a great fourth quarter and atmosphere and everything that goes with that. And so now we'll turn the page. We'll turn the page. We're going to try to, our goal now is to win 10 games, which is extremely hard to do, with the schedule like we have. And so our guys are putting it behind us. We got Sanford coming up. I think there's some things we can take from that fourth quarter that can help us, the rest of the season. So we're turning the page for Sanford and looking forward to finishing this season in a positive way. Oh, no, I didn't. But if you look how a game unfolds, I think we were close through the first three quarters. I think we were close to 50-50. We may have thrown it a few more times and run it through and we really win the game knowing we had to be balanced. And when you're playing a talented defense, you need to be balanced. And we talked about that even last Tuesday. But, you get in the fourth quarter and you're down by 21 points. And I think we threw it 20 times. I think we ran it 10 times in the fourth quarter. But, no, to answer your question, I didn't think we would throw it 50 times. But the way the game unfolded, that's what we need to do in the fourth quarter. I'll say this. I think you asked me the question, after the game about winning records and all that, 21 points or something. But at the same time, I think everybody we played with a winning record but one's in the top 25. And we have played against some of the best defenses. But every game is different. You got to score more points to win the game. And that's the bottom line. And we didn't score enough Saturday to win the game. And, we're going to keep striving to do that. And, I feel like we will. We've had a couple opportunities. We didn't. The other night, the week before, we talked about scoring 20 points and having 500 yards offense. We got to put more points on the board. So I'm encouraged that we're going to do that moving forward, and we've been close, and we just got to do it. Well, we got some guys banged up. It was a physical game as well, it always is. But, I think for the most part, came out of it okay.
SEC Nation continues. Where else? The University of Georgia this weekend, 10 o'clock. Welcome back to the program. Let's continue with more calls. And John is in Memphis. Hello, John.
Good afternoon, Paul. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Okay, I think I caught your cold. But I guess really just one two-part question. Mac Jones, he's got 2 years of eligibility left, is what I heard on one of the game casts. And so he's got 2 years of eligibility left, which is going to make him pretty prized as a grad transfer. And it's like Bram said, why does he got to transfer? If he's got 2 years of eligibility, why can't he do his graduate work at Bama?
Well, he can. Listen, right now we don't know what next year is going to look like. Mac Jones will be assuming let's say he has a great game against Auburn and leads them either to the playoffs or to the Sugar Bowl. He would probably be the favorite next year to be the starter, even with this gunslinger coming in from California.
But he's going to graduate in December. And now it seems they got to go.
But tell me this, John. Why would he leave to go somewhere else when he's probably going to be the starter at Alabama?
Well, that's my point. He's got 2 years of eligibility, even though he graduates. Can he stay there as a grad? I thought grad transfers, that was the whole point of the grad transfer. They had to transfer in order to keep playing. If he can keep playing at Alabama, that's great.
Well, I think he will.
He can play, you think? He can continue?
Well, I think he has another year. I could be wrong, but I'll double check.
Well, like I said on a game cast, they said he graduated so fast. He's got 2 more years of eligibility.
So he's listen. He'll be there next year. Now after that, I have no idea. Hey, thanks for the call. Really do appreciate it. Joey's in California. Hello, Joey.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
We are doing well. Thank you very much.
I was just wondering, since Alabama lost to LSU, I got two takes for you. How do you think they get back in? Because, it's set up now for them to just get jumped over with a Pac-12 champion. And I'm thinking, Clemson could lose to Clemson lose to South Carolina.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, South Carolina shows up to play in every single game that they're playing one of these ranked opponents. They showed up versus Georgia. They beat Georgia. They showed up versus Alabama for the first half. I mean, why wouldn't they show up for Clemson? They haven't beat them in, 4 years?
I think this will be the 6th straight year they've lost to them if they lose.
6.
Or either 5th or 6th. I can't remember, yeah. Listen, Joey, I don't know what South Carolina is going to do. The only thing I know about South Carolina is that the president seemingly issues a new statement every day clarifying something he previously said. Ken is up next in Atlanta. Hello, Ken.
Hey, Paul. How's it going, my man?
We are doing great. Thank you.
Good, man. First-time caller, long-time listener.
Thank you.
Look, man, I am scared as heck for Saturday and my dogs against A&M, man. Oh, Jimbo. Jimbo's due for a big win, and I just hope like hell it's not this coming Saturday against my dogs. What do you think?
Listen, A&M hasn't shown that they're capable of beating a really good team. If you look at every game they played against Clemson, they really couldn't get it going offensively. Alabama, that game was over. The Auburn game, they were really shut down offensively. Trying to remember who else LSU. Well, they haven't played LSU yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Arkansas game, it took a 4th down stand. They barely got by Ole Miss. I mean, I don't see a lot of indicators for me to believe unless Georgia is really flat. Now, coming out of the Auburn game, it's entirely possible.
Let me ask you this too, Paul. What's your opinion on Georgia's offensive coordinator, man? To me, he doesn't seem to be creative enough. He don't. He's vanilla. I mean, you could pretty much predict what Georgia's going to run from the games I've been watching them all year long. And with the 5-star talent that he have on the offensive side of the ball, he should be better than that, man. I mean, to me,
let's cut to the chase. Jake Fromm is a very good quarterback, but he has some limitations. And I think you got the offensive line, you got Swift, you got the receiving core is getting better. Your defense is superb. It just seems like Kirby's is instructing his coaches to be very conservative because the defense is going to win the game. Now, it almost blew up on him Saturday at Auburn.
Exactly. That's my point. You can't keep being conservative. You don't win national titles that way. You got to open up the offense and let those guys ball out, man.
Well, I mean, you're right, but I think he's continued to live on the edge. Now, we saw what happened against South Carolina. That was really about Georgia's offensive line and special teams, and they broke down. I mean, Georgia's not going to score a lot of points.
I think we can score enough, though, Paul. We can score enough, man. Nice talking with you, man. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, listen though, but in terms of Coach Coley, he's doing what Kirby Smart tells him to do. I never like blaming a coordinator because the coordinator answers to the head coach. Thank you for the call. Really do appreciate it. Pate is in Oxford. Pate, you're on the air. Go right ahead.
Hey, Paul. I was wondering what you were thinking about John Rice Plumlee, Jayon Ely. We got Elijah Moore on the offensive side of the ball. We got a bunch of young guys on the defensive side of the ball for Ole Miss. What do you think that future of Ole Miss is like? What do you think they're going to be ranked? What are you thinking about that?
I'm pretty upbeat. I think if Ole Miss can go into Starkville and win the Egg Bowl, they are going to go into the next season with tremendous momentum. We had Plumlee on here yesterday, and this guy can do everything. I mean, he's just a special kid, and I walked away as impressed with a young quarterback or player as I've been in a long time. Hey, thank you for the call. Paul is in Augusta. You're on the air. Welcome to our show.
How are you? Thanks for taking my call, Paul. I got a couple of things for you. First, number one, Roll Tide. Thank you for putting Daryl in his place. I thought that was very appropriate. The next thing I got for you, you remember back in 2017, Auburn beat Georgia and then beat Alabama, correct?
That is correct.
The one thing that LSU and Georgia have in common is they both get to play Texas A&M. In your opinion, and I'll hang up on when I'm done, what happens to the four if Texas A&M lucks out and beats both? I don't think it will happen, but what do you think could happen, Paul, to the four playoff teams then? Thanks for taking my call, Paul.
Okay, let me hold that for a second. It's going to take a few minutes to digest. Hold the thought. We have a guest coming up here in a moment. I don't want to keep them waiting. More from you.